So, you've decided to launch an RTO, and you're here because you want to know how to launch an RTO. Hi, my name is Angela Connell. I am the CEO and founder of Vivacity Coaching and Consulting. I have been helping training organisations all over Australia to get compliant and stay compliant since 2009. We have a big team at Vivacity. We've been working within the training industry for quite some time. We have a team of experts who are compliance auditors and also working as consultants around Australia. So let's get into it. You've decided you want to become an RTO. So I'm assuming you want to know how and what are the requirements and what you need to do in order to set up as an RTO. So we're going to be going through these today. But before we begin, I need to get your commitment. I would like you to pay full attention to what we're going to go through today. Grab a pen and paper and take many notes because there's going to be lots of things that you're going to learn that we're going to cover today. So I really would like you to be on the ball and paying attention, not cooking dinner or doing something on the side. It would be good if you could be paying attention. My goal is to share this information with you about how to set up an RTO and what the whole process is of launching an RTO based on my over 20 years of experience in the training industry, including from being an owner and operator of my own RTOs, as well as being a trainer assessor, an RTO manager, a CEO, a training coordinator. I've done it pretty much it all when it comes to working within an RTO. So I'll be covering a lot of information based on my years of experience in the training industry. My promise to you is today I will be sharing these experiences of over 20 years where I've been working in the training industry, what I learned, what to do, and what not to do so that you can minimize the risk of non-compliance with your decision about whether to purchase an RTO or set up your own RTO. So we'll be going through both of those today. So stick to the end because at the end, I'm giving away a free audit checklist that you can use for preparing for audit when you go to ASQA, but also identifying the types of documents that you'll need to have in place in order to be ready for an ASQA audit. So hang around till the end of this video and you'll get access to that free form. So what is an RTO? A registered training organisation can deliver nationally recognised qualifications around Australia. They are not only recognised in Australia, they're also recognised overseas. We have a lot of clients who are delivering around the world. So they are in Dubai, India, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, Vietnam, New Zealand. We have a range of different areas where our clients are delivering. Now, you don't need to be a CRICOS provider, which is a provider that can deliver international students to international students, training to international students. It is, as long as you're an RTO, you can deliver not only in Australia, but also overseas. And this includes online, what you can be doing. Now, as an RTO, you can issue certificates that are nationally recognised. What that means is if you're a non-accredited training organisation, you may issue a certificate, but it's not from a training package and it's not to a national standard. So it's very different when you're working within an RTO and you have that registration because you're able to issue nationally recognised qualifications, which is one of the reasons why you may be thinking about setting up as an RTO. You might be currently delivering non-accredited training and you're trying to decide, well, do I want to become an RTO? Is it worth my while to become an RTO? As an RTO, you also are eligible for accessing government funding. So that means when you become an RTO, you can apply for government funding in different states to be able to deliver training that is covered by government funding, which is a big interest with a lot of people who own training organisations. It also means that you're meeting industry requirements. So you're delivering training products that are written for a national standard, but you're including industry to identify how can you meet their needs when you're delivering your training. CRICOS. So CRICOS is international students. It's where you are delivering training and assessment to international students coming into Australia. The difference between delivering training overseas to students who are overseas compared to in Australia is you're dealing with student visa requirements, border protection patrols, and also protecting the interest of Australia. So it's the policies and procedures that you have in place are going to be very much around protecting Australia. So it means you can deliver training to international students and help them getting into Australia on student visas. And you're very much responsible as a CRICOS provider to be monitoring their academic and attendance performance whilst they're in Australia and making sure that they are completing the training as per their enrolment. With RTO registration, you can also, so you can do RTO and CRICOS together, you can also deliver nationally recognised qualifications, which is highly sought after by international students who come to Australia. Additionally, you could offer ALACOS courses as well, which is English language courses. So, who are the regulatory body? The regulatory body are the people who are responsible for regulating the standards, and this is called the Australian Skills Quality Authority, also known as ASQA. So, ASQA are responsible for regulating the standards. They're like the police for the training industry. So they're not responsible for the standards. They don't write the standards. They don't write the legislation. They're responsible for regulating the standards and making sure that anybody who becomes a registered training organisation or CRICOS provider are meeting the requirements of the legislation. So that's their key role, is to audit you and identify whether you are complying with the standards as per what's set out by the government. The legislation is actually approved by the government, so it's got nothing to do with ASQA. It's a common myth that a lot of people think that ASQA write the standards, but they've got nothing to do with the standards other than regulating the standards. So they have very strict requirements when you're registering as an RTO. And these requirements are very much so when you submit an initial registration application. There is also additional requirements around if you buy an RTO, and we'll be going into that further today. ASQA are responsible for auditing your RTO to identify whether you're a fit and proper person to be able to deliver and assess quality education, and whether you have all the resources, trainers and assessors, training rooms, assessment tools, training materials. You have everything in place that meets the requirements of the standards to maintain that quality level. An authorised auditor from ASQA will come out to your site, or they may conduct the audit online, depending on the circumstances and what training products you're putting on your scope of registration. To find out more about ASQA, go to asqa.gov.au. So, what's the process for applying for registration with ASQA? So, there's quite a lot of information about what you need to do. Now, if you've gone to the ASQA website already, you would have identified that there's actually quite a lot involved. It's quite extensive, and one of the main things with ASQA is they want to make sure that only quality operators are delivering training and assessment. So, what ASQA do is they're determining your capacity to be able to deliver that training and assessment and ensure that you're ready to commence training straight away. So you need to have everything in place when you submit your application to ASQA. You can't submit some of the documents. It was in the past, you could do this. You could submit some of the documents and then you submit the remaining documents when you go to audit. You have to submit everything with your application. So it's quite a bit of a process when you're submitting your application. Once you've submitted your application, you cannot change your location, your trainers, or your training products. So there's quite a few restrictions around what you can and cannot do once you've submitted that application. So when you're applying for initial registration, you're also required to undergo and demonstrate your financial viability, that you're able to pay and forecast into the future what is going to be the growth of your RTO, and then what you're going to have in place in order to manage that growth. So your financial viability includes forecasting for the next 3 years. It also includes that you've got to demonstrate that you have the funds to be able to manage that into the future. And this is forecasted income that would be coming in as well. You're also required for an initial registration, as well as when you buy an RTO, to undergo a self-assessment. So this is to demonstrate your capacity to meet the requirements of the standards and to be able to own and operate an RTO. We'll go in further into the self-assessment later on in this training. So what is RTO registration? RTO registration is complying with the standards for RTOs. So it's known as the Standards for Registered Training Organisation. You might hear it called standards or the standards for RTOs. So there's a range of different terms that we will use in the training industry. You'll also need to be able to demonstrate how you would meet the requirements of the Australian Qualifications Framework. The Australian Qualifications Framework sets out the framework for the certificate levels that we have in place and what you need to have in place for your delivery and assessment to meet those requirements. Then there are the fit and proper person requirements. So the fit and proper person requirements is where you need to demonstrate that you are a fit and proper person, and every director and shareholder on your company is a fit and proper person to be able to run and operate an RTO. One of the requirements around fit and proper person is if you have owned and operated an RTO previously, you need to tick a box that says that you have done that previously, and they will want to understand why. Are you setting up another RTO if you currently own one, or if you have sold one and now setting up another one? Now, another area that they've cracked down on with fit and proper person is they also want to know, have you had a relative? It could be mum, dad, brother, sister. It could also be de facto relationships of someone who also owns and operates an RTO now or in the past. Now, the reason why they do this is because there's been operators out there who've set up an RTO, been non-compliant, had their registration cancelled, and then go along and open up another RTO in one of their family members' names. So now they've cracked down on that, and they want to make sure that you're not a dodgy operator who's trying to set up another RTO under another name. So there are so many requirements around fit and proper person when you go to apply for your initial registration. This is also a requirement, and all of these are also a requirement if you buy an RTO. There's also the financial viability risk assessment, which I went through before, which includes forecasting and identifying that you are financially viable to be able to own and operate an RTO. There are also data provisioning requirements. So the data provisioning is ensuring that you have an VETMIS compliant database in place that collects sufficient evidence against the VETMIS data that's required to be collected as part of your registration process. And this database needs to also be able to submit reporting to the government on your VETMIS data. There's also a few other things that you need to be able to submit reports on from your database. So it's a very important part of ensuring that you're complying with the legislation is having this VETMIS compliant database. So what's CRICOS registration? CRICOS registration is where you are registering to be able to bring international students into Australia. So as I stated earlier, it's basically visa protection. So student visas and students coming into Australia, and how are we making sure that we're protecting those students while they're in Australia? So this comes under the ESOS Act, which is Education Services for Overseas Students. And then you'll also need the National Code Practice of Providers of Education and Training to Overseas Students, also known as the National Code. And this is where you need to have a set of policies and procedures written against this legislation to ensure that you are compliant and that you will be able to provide quality education. There are a range of forms and documents that you need to complete when you submit your registration. These include the fit and proper person form, as we had discussed before, a CEO declaration of compliance. So this is a form that states that as the CEO, so someone within your organization should be nominated as the CEO. It's normally, it may be just one director, so that will be the CEO, or it could be you have a range of directors and one of the other directors is the CEO. The CEO declares that they are responsible for the compliance within the RTO. And that means that they are responsible for ensuring that the policies and procedures are in place and that the RTO is meeting the requirements of the standards at any given time. So that is a very important document that you're signing to say that you will operate ethically within your RTO. Then there's the financial viability kit, which needs to be submitted as part of your registration process. So when you submit for your registration, you need to be able to demonstrate financial viability as an RTO. And you also need to complete that self-assessment form to identify that you have everything in place in order to conduct quality education. So we'll be going through the self-assessment form later on in this training. There's a range of other documentation that you need to submit with your application when you submit it to ASQA. This includes a strategic business plan. The strategic business plan is what you work out with your financial viability to identify what's your 3-year plan, what do you plan with your growth of your organization, what resources are you able to access, and how are you going to deliver that training and assessment throughout in the next 3 years. And it's very important for the growth as well. Now, if you're an enterprise RTO and you decide that you want to set up as an RTO, you need to have a separate business plan that is written around your RTO and what you want within your RTO. You still can bring in information about the entity of the company, of the enterprise RTO, into that business plan. The business plan, though, however, needs to be very specific around your training and your forecasted income and how you plan to deliver and assess that training. As stated earlier, you'll need to do your financial viability assessment, and part of that is projected profit and loss. So there should be spreadsheets in place identifying budgets and what your plan is for the future. You'll also need to have intensive training and assessment strategies that includes all of the requirements of how you're going to conduct the training and assessment for each training product on your scope of registration. This training and assessment strategy is the core of your training and your application when you submit it to ASQA. It is one of the most important documents within your RTO. It's so important that we have an 8-week course on just how to write a training and assessment strategy, because there is so much involved with writing a training and assessment strategy, and it's the number one non-compliance when you go to an ASQA audit. So it's really, really crucial for your organization. Then, of course, you've got to submit your training and assessment tools for each training product on your scope of registration that you wish to apply for as part of that process. And this includes how you're going to deliver the training, a delivery plan, session plans. It's also the training materials, resources, and equipment that you're going to use for the delivery, and then what you need to have in place in order to assess. And you've got to have all of this in place when you submit your application. It's not something you can purchase later on. You've got to be able to demonstrate that with your application when you submit it. You also need to have a staff matrix in place for each trainer or assessor, which demonstrates their skills and knowledge against the units of competencies that they will be delivering. This could be direct equivalent units that they may already hold, complemented with industry experience and knowledge, or it could be that you need to map, because they may not hold the direct equivalent units, you need to map all of their skills and knowledge against each unit of competency. You'll also need to have a full set of policies and procedures that are written against the standards for RTOs. That includes the whole process of how you're going to manage and maintain that quality delivery of training and assessment. You also need to submit marketing materials that includes all the training products that you're going to be offering as part of your RTO. So whatever you put on your scope of registration for initial registration, you need to have marketing material that supports that. So that's course flyers, your website, and any other documentation that you'll be providing to the students to help them determine whether you're the suitable RTO for them and the training is suitable for them. So it's really important that you get that right, and it can often be a non-compliance as well. There are additional requirements that you need to submit if you decide that you would like to go with CRICOS. This includes a 9B approval. A 9B approval is your council approves the building for a capacity to be able to deliver education services within that premises. And it is a highly sought after requirement in Victoria. All RTOs must also comply with this, as well as CRICOS providers. So what that means is you've got to provide a building plan, and that building plan of the floor plan includes each training room, how those rooms are set out with your tables and chairs and where your trainers are going to sit, where your counselling and support services are going to be as well, and administration staff. And that the council would determine what the capacity of that building is. Then ASQA will use that coupled with your CRICOS timetable, which is the next section we're going to go through. The CRICOS timetable lists every single training product that you wish to deliver over a period of time, what your capacity is of each training room with your tables and chairs, and then they will determine the capacity of what you'll be approved for based on your building plan, your CRICOS timetable, and how long you've been in the industry, how many training products you've got in your scope. So it's really, really important that you have a really good CRICOS timetable. You'll also need to have in place an international student prospectus. This international student prospectus outlines the roles and responsibilities of the students, what they need to know when living in Australia, what are their rights as a student within Australia. It's understanding, what shopping is like in Australia, how much things cost, living expenses, rent, it could be food, all different things to make sure that they understand what they're coming into when they come into Australia. You'll also need to have a letter of offer, which includes in it the written agreement between the student and the RTO when they come into your organisation. And they sign this written agreement understanding what all of the fees are, what the requirements of the training are, and how much, how long the course will be going for as well. You need to also be able to demonstrate that you have a student support officer, and that this student support officer, how they're going to support the students whilst they're within your organisation. If you decide to put ELICOS on your scope, you'll also need to have an ELICOS academic manager in place, who normally would have TESOL qualifications or something similar to that, to be able to assist those students who come from non-English speaking background who will be learning English whilst they're in Australia. So you may be asking, should I become an RTO or expand into CRICOS? This might be things that you're considering right now. So this would be determined by your current circumstances and where you are right now. So, for example, you might be currently looking at, you're delivering non-accredited training right now, and you might be deciding, should I become an RTO and deliver accredited training? And why should I do that? So one of the things that you need to consider is, if you are delivering non-accredited training right now, is your industry requiring a qualification? So there are different reasons why you become an RTO. So, for example, if you wanted to deliver training in individual support or aged care, it is a requirement of the industry that people who want to enter into roles within that industry, they must hold a Cert 3 in individual support as a minimum. So that would be a good reason why you would put become an RTO. But you might be delivering training in an industry where they don't care whether you have a qualification or their staff members have a qualification, as long as they've done the training. So it may not be a requirement that you need to have nationally recognised qualifications and become an RTO, because there is so much involved with becoming an RTO. But the advantages are that you get access to government funding, as I stated earlier. There's also some industries, there are a lot of industries where they require their staff members to have a nationally recognised qualification because it reduces their insurance risks. So that is another reason why you would become an RTO. So are you in business right now? You don't have to be. It could be that you have another business. It might be a consulting business, and now you want to be able to deliver training and assessment as well. So that is a good reason why you may set up as an RTO, because you want to complement the current services that you offer. Do you need a training background? No, you don't. You hire trainers and assessors who know their stuff and they know how to deliver training and assessment. Most RTO owners are entrepreneurs. They're not necessarily trainers and assessors. I was a trainer and assessor when I owned my own RTO. I only delivered business, but I had 35 qualifications on my scope, and they range from aged care, disability, community services, hairdressing, beauty, tourism, hospitality, event management, business, childcare. We had so many qualifications on the scope of registration, and I could not deliver training in all of those areas. I knew business, and that was my background, but that was it. So you don't have to necessarily have a training background, but you do need to have a team that are on board that actually know what they're doing. Are you currently delivering non-accredited? So I talked about that, and you might want to become an RTO. Does your industry require? I went through that as well. It may be that you now want to access an international market and bring international students into Australia. So that's another good reason to become an RTO. We often get inquiries from people who come in who want to know about buying an RTO. So they're inquiring about that. I want to know what the process is and whether we sell RTOs as well. There are lots and lots of risks of buying an RTO, and we're going to go through some of those now. So when it comes to ASQA, they consider a change of ownership, which is when you buy an RTO, is high risk. And what they determine is that, okay, if you want to buy an RTO, you need to demonstrate to us that you're a fit and proper person, that you're financially viable, that you want to deliver quality education, that you have all of the resources in place. So there's a lot of requirements around when you buy an RTO. So it's quite risky if you buy an RTO and they don't have all of those things in place, because as the new CEO and the directors of that RTO, you become legally responsible in accordance with ASQA requirements when you take over that RTO. So it may be that you can't transfer an RTO registration to another company, but you can buy shares in an RTO and then you take over that RTO. ASQA refers to this event as a change of ownership. So what does change of ownership mean? Change of ownership is where you changes to company shareholding of 50% or more are considered significant, and that would mean that they would want to consider all of those partners and directors within that company, and that they meet the requirements of the standards. So ASQA considers a change of ownership to be a significant risk to the quality of education that we offer in Australia, and significant risk as to, do you understand the requirements of the standards and the regulations that you need to comply with? So the change involves the same process as initial registration. So it's pretty much the same. If you buy an RTO, it's just the same as doing an initial registration. The process is just the same. ASQA considers change of ownership as the purchaser avoiding the scrutiny applied to initial registration. And that has happened for many, many years in the past, where people just thought, well, if I buy an RTO, I avoid that whole process of initial registration. It might be quicker for me to do it that way. But what ASQA found, there was so many non-compliances of people who bought an RTO because they really didn't understand their responsibilities as the owner of that RTO. So ASQA scrutiny goes into quite significant in-depth requirements. So the scrutiny is when notified of those significant changes of ownership, so it might be 50% or 100%, ownership has changed. And what they consider a change of ownership is 15% or more of the shares, and there's someone else who comes in, that you will be required to undertake additional scrutiny, which includes a self-assessment. So the scrutiny is applied to ensure providers are appropriately prepared to be able to deliver quality education and training. So they have the assessment tools, they have the trainers and assessors, they have all of the equipment required, they have the training rooms, they have everything in place to be able to continue to deliver that training and continue to be resourced with that, all of that quality equipment. And do you understand what the requirements are to comply with the regulatory requirements, including the requirements around fit and proper person requirements? So the process for change of ownership, both the current CEO and the future CEO are required to notify ASQA of change of ownership within 90 days of that change of ownership. So that's the ASIC company records that have changed to the new directors. Within that 90-day period, you need to notify ASQA. And in that time, you need to make sure all of the documentation is in place for that submission of a self-assessment during that 90-day period. So you've got to actually submit that with your change of ownership. This includes completion of a fit and proper person form for changes of 15% of the shares or more, and the new owner will be subjected to a self-assessment and a compliance audit where ASQA will come out and conduct an audit. So for 50% or more of change of ownership within that first 12 months of period, you will be required to complete a financial viability risk assessment tool. So that will need to be submitted with your self-assessment. You need to complete Section A of the self-assessment tool for change of ownership. This must include the required supporting evidence, so policies, procedures, documentation, training and assessment strategies, training tools, assessment tools, delivery and assessment. There's a whole heap of documents, a lot of documents you need to submit. There are two versions of this tool, a standard version and a version for ELICOS providers. So if you wish to also purchase a ELICOS organisation as well. Now, if 100% of ownership changes over, where a training provider takes over 100% of the shareholdings over a 12-month period, so it could be, so this means that you may only buy 15% shares, but within that 12-month period from when you bought 15%, if you take over 100% within that 12-month period, that would trigger this self-assessment. So the best way to do this is to stay on for, 13 months so that you get past the 12-month period. And that way you should be delivering the training and assessment with the old owner, so that you're learning. Basically, that's what ASQA want you to do. They want you to learn how to run an RTO through being with the previous owner of the RTO. So this is a requirement if ASQA and the provider has either no ongoing students or not had more than 10 students complete a course within the last 12 months of registration, you'll need to complete Section A and B as well, whether that's 100% or 50% of the shares. So ASQA's response to change of ownership. So ownership, once the notification has been submitted to ASQA, that means that we're in that process of change of ownership. There will be a compliance audit. So somewhere in the next 12 months, and often it can be triggered straight away. So depending on what's on ASQA's timetable, it could happen within a month of change of ownership, you'll be audited. So just like an initial registration. So you'll need to provide all of the evidence as per an initial registration would in the compliance audit. So you need to submit all of the documentation for a self-assessment, and they'll get you to do the self-assessment tool and focus on whether the new owner, so this is what ASQA will do, has sufficient resources in place to be able to continue running the RTO. They review all of your documentation and your RTO to determine that you have sufficient support for your students. And if non-compliant, regulatory action can happen. So that could include cancellation of your registration. So this increased scrutiny is for the first 12 months while you're owning and operating the RTO. And there will be charges, additional charges from ASQA to you for those audits and for all this process. It actually ends up costing more than doing an initial registration when it comes to all the fees that you pay to ASQA compared to initial. So it's a lot more involved. I'll give you an example of a client that we had recently, actually. They actually came to us about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and they wanted us to do, he was going to buy an RTO. He was a trainer assessor of that RTO, and he wanted to buy the RTO. There was a lot of issues with the owner. They put it off. They were sick. There was all sorts of issues. And then he came back to us this year. 2.5 years ago, very different if you're going to buy an RTO. Now, massive, massive changes. So he came back to us this year. He bought the RTO, didn't do anything with us for due diligence, just bought it. ASQA came out, cancelled the registration. He lost all of the money that he paid for the RTO, as well as all of the other fees and stuff that he paid for, ASQA fees and consultant fees and things like that, lost all of that. And now he's doing initial registration with us. So it is a big risk. Do you know who you're dealing with when you're buying the RTO? You need to be very, very careful with what you're doing when you buy an RTO. And as you can see, ASQA considers it an initial registration. So how are you complying with that? So the risks of buying an RTO, it is not quicker than setting up an RTO. It is a myth. In the past, yes, it was quicker, but not anymore. It is not quicker to buy an RTO than it is to set up your own. You need to complete the whole process of change of, the whole thing that can happen, these are one of the risks, is you complete the whole process of change of ownership and then you're deemed critically non-compliant. And that could have been because of the previous owner, could have been hold-ups, it could have been all sorts of things that could have caused that. The RTO registration is cancelled due to not meeting the ASQA compliance audit requirements, as I just gave an example in that case study. Loss of time for the whole process, and you have to begin it all over again and start again, like that client that we've got. You waste a whole heap of money on buying the RTO and perhaps even hiring a consultant to rectify the non-compliances, which we've had to do many times in the past, to then lose it, to lose everything. And then ending up with a record with ASQA, which increases your risk if you do decide to go back and set up an RTO. So you don't want to have that risk and have that record with ASQA if you've tried to buy an RTO and then it got shut down. So buying versus registering your own RTO or CRICOS business. Buying takes longer to buy an RTO than it would doing an initial registration. Will be required to go through the same process as initial registration. So you're not avoiding it. You'll have to go through the same process. You put yourself at risk of having cancellation and then a bad name with ASQA, and you don't want to have that if that's your plan, is to stay in the training industry. You waste a whole heap of time and money. New owners are audited. So as the new directors, as the shareholders, you are audited and you're responsible for everything. And this means everything that the previous owner did. So if they claimed government funding when they shouldn't have, you're responsible. If they were non-compliant, didn't collect sufficient evidence against students who completed training, you're responsible. So there's a lot involved when you buy an RTO. And then they may not even have the training products you want on the scope. So then you're going to have to add them, and that increases the risk because then you're doing an additional scope and ASQA will want to audit you. So it's not easier to buy. Now, I'm not saying, like, I've sold 2 of my own RTOs and I put a lot of work into those RTOs. But what I did was when I sold them, I provided support to the new owners and I trained them on what to do. So if you have someone who's willing to do that, and basically what you need to do is keep it under 50%. So they are going to need to own 51%. You're going to own 49%, and you keep them on for at least 1 year, 1 day, so that you can get that training. So that's where it could work, is doing it that way. But lots of risks there as well. So registering your own RTO, it's a lower risk, as there's no non-compliances, no hidden skeletons in the closet. You know what's going to happen because you went through the whole process. You also learn so much along the way when you do an initial registration yourself. There are no hidden surprises, and you get to choose what qualifications you want to put on your scope. The way I describe it, it's like building a new house. You get to choose the carpet and the tiles and the wall paint. You get to choose everything. When you set up your own RTO, you get to choose what qualifications you have in your scope, what training materials you have, who are the trainers and assessors. You get to choose all of that. So big thing to think about. Now, I promised that I would show you what this document looks like. So I am just going to go through that now with you. So this is the self-assessment form. So this is what the government will require you to complete when you buy an RTO. Now, when you do an initial registration, you're also going to do one of these forms as well. So it's quite involved. It has all of the conditions in there and what the requirements are and the additional evidence that you need to submit. But it also has, so you've got to complete it, fill the forms in, and then you've got to do an audit of all of the documentation. Now, if you say yes to anything here, they're going to expect to see evidence of that. If you have no, it will be rejected. You could be rejected if it's yes. So when they come out and audit and you have yes, 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 yes for all of these, they will expect to see evidence of that when they audit you. So they'll want to make sure that you have training and assessment strategies in place, you have trainers and assessors, you have the assessment tools, you have all of the equipment, you have the training venues, all of it. Policies and procedures, documentation. This you need to submit with the change of ownership form. So this needs to go with it. So if the previous owner doesn't have all of this in place, you're going to have to do that within that 90-day period and make sure it's submitted. So it's really important that you have all of this in place before you buy the RTO. So you need to have everything in place before you do that. So that would mean if you were buying an RTO and they had to do all of this before the settlement, you'll be paying more for the RTO. You'll be paying a lot more because this is a lot more work. Like, I know, I've done it. I know how much work is involved. It's an initial registration. It's the whole process. So you're going to have to do this as well. When we work with our clients, we do this self-assessment with our clients when we submit. There's no way our clients could do this on their own. It's so much work involved. So yeah, you need to really consider What is it that you want to do, and what's the process, and how do you want to do this? So, okay, I may have scared you off buying an RTO, but I don't want to scare you off setting up an RTO because there is so much involved. Also, we do provide a due diligence package, so we can help with the buying of an RTO. And I highly recommend that you do get a consultant involved when you buy an RTO, because the last thing you want is to spend all that time and money for the ASQA to cancel the registration. You don't want that. You want to make sure that you're not buying a higher risk. You want to be managing that. So if you want to set up an RTO, now I love being in the training industry and I love our clients and who we work with. This is what you need to do. So you need to begin with the end in mind. So you may already have a company set up, but you may want to set up a new entity, or you may want to set up under the current company. If you don't have a current company, you need to set up a company and then put it under. RTOs can be registered under a range of structures. So there is proprietary limited, sole trader, trust. ASQA prefers proprietary limited. It is also much easier to sell later on down the track. It doesn't have as many issues as a trust or a sole trader. So there's a lot more issues around that. So we highly recommend a proprietary limited. One of the things I recommend, if you already have another company in place, if you go to sell, so if you were to do your RTO under the registration of your current company, when you go to sell that company or the RTO, you have to sell the whole lot together. You can't separate it because you can't transfer that out. You've got to sell the shares in the company. So what we recommend is you set up a trust. You have the other company you already have and the RTO under that trust. And then that way you can have one ABN under the trust that operates under all of those entities. So that makes it so much easier with managing all of those, but it so much easier if you decide to separate them later on down the track. So who should you have in your RTO? We have many clients who have set up as me, myself, and I RTO. So what that means, I'm the CEO, I'm the trainer, I'm the financial officer, I do the marketing, I do the recruitment, I do everything. You can do it like that. I don't recommend it because it will take you forever to take off. You really need to have a team behind you to help you through this whole process. Even just doing the initial registration process, there's a lot of work involved. So you can do it. It's not a problem. As long as you can demonstrate as a CEO that you're a fit and proper person, as a trainer assessor, you have the skills and knowledge, the experience, the qualifications, you have everything in place. So you can do that. That's not a problem. You don't need to have a team, but we do highly, highly recommend that you do. So at least have an admin assistant or get a trainer assessor. I always say to our clients, if you want to run and operate an RTO, you can't be the trainer forever. And the reason why is you'll never grow. Your business won't grow. We've got a really good example of a client who we've been working with at the start of the year. So we do coaching as part of our membership and our Kickstart package. We do weekly coaching with our clients. And at the start of the year, she was still in the training room. And I said to her, you're not going to make any money when you're in the training room. It's great and you enjoy it, and because that's what she said, but I love it. I love being in the training room. And I said, yeah, but look at all the money that you're losing every day you're in that training room. You need to get out of the training room and run this business. You've got to work on the business, not in the business, because you'll never make any money working in the business. You've got to work on it. She changed. She got out of the training room. Within a couple of weeks, she had a trainer hired, and now her business has taken off. Totally different. So it's something I highly recommend to our clients. You can't stay in the training room because your business won't grow. And I've seen it. I've seen people set up RTOs. They didn't hire anybody else. They were the trainer assessor and their business doesn't go anywhere. So it's not going to grow if you don't have a team behind you. If you are doing CRICOS, you need to make sure you've got a minimum of an academic manager and a student support officer to meet the requirements of capacity of students you wish to apply for. Trainers and assessors, you'll need to have someone to go through the assessment tools with the auditor, so they have a good understanding of the course and the requirements of the course as well. Okay, so how long does it take? We get asked this question a lot. How long will the whole process take? So according to ASQA, it will take 12 to 18 months. It can take longer. It depends on what you're doing, what qualifications you're putting on your scope, whether you have anything in place right now. So if you're delivering non-accredited training right now, you may already have equipment and training rooms and things like that in place. So it all depends on all those variables. So our process for RTOs, we have submitted within 3 to 4 months, but it can take, being realistic, 6 to 12 months, 6 to 12 months to get your application submitted to ASQA. And this really depends on, as I said before, what resources you have in place and who you've got helping you. Now, we have had, I have had a client who just 100% focused on their Kickstart package, their initial registration, and we have them submitted within a month. But they were, 7 days a week for a whole month, just focused on that. That's all they did. And we got them submitted. So you can do it. Don't recommend it. If you're running another business or you're working for someone else, be realistic, because you've got to still do that as well as trying to set up an RTO, and there's quite a bit of work involved with setting up an RTO. I know people where it's taken them 3 years to get their application submitted. That's when they tried to do it on their own because they didn't know what the process is. So yeah, you need to be realistic when you're looking at the timeframes for submitting this and looking at your timeframe, what you have in place, what resources do you have in place. Do I need to be an expert? So you don't need to be an expert in compliance or training. We do recommend that you're a good entrepreneur, a business owner, you're getting support. I recommend coaches. And I also recommend that you have someone on your team who does know what they're doing. A bit like us, like what we do. We do it day in, day out. It's what we do. We are compliance and we help people all the time. So it's really good if you've got a team there, as I said before, trainers and assessors who can support you as well. And that we recommend that you, as a newbie, that you get an experienced trainer. If you're not a trainer, I recommend that you get an experienced trainer, because that will help you through the whole process of getting registered. The CEO and directors do not need to have any qualifications, experience or training or anything like that. That might change though, because we've got a vet reform coming up. That could change within that. But at the moment, no, you don't need to have any of that. But if you are doing CRICOS, you need to have a principal executive officer who has to have a minimum of 5 years experience working in Australia. So there is only that requirement there. Now, another area where we get often asked a lot of question is, how much does it cost? So you need to consider not just our fees. If you're looking at hiring Vivacity, it's not just our fees. Our fees are like, you look at an iceberg and you can just see the top of the iceberg. This is us at the top. Then down here is all your other fees. We are just the tip. There is so much more involved. So you need to be serious. Seriously, this is a business you're setting up. You need to be serious about this. So there are ASQA fees. There are registration and setup fees. So there's things like you got to get resources and training rooms and trainers and assessment tools and equipment. There's lots of stuff that you need to get in place. You may need to hire staff through this process. So for an RTO, we recommend a minimum of $75,000, a minimum of 75. So that will get you through that whole process. So this is 6 to 12 months. So following registration, you've got to go through, setting up and marketing and business development and growth and all that sort of stuff. You need at least to have access to at least a minimum of $75,000. CRICOS, because there's few more requirements around that. There are other documents you've got to have in place. You've got to have a building. There's all sorts of things that you've got to have in place to meet CRICOS requirements, a PEO, a academic officer. There's all sorts of things you need to have in place. Minimum $100,000. This is realistic. You really need to think about this. This is a business. It's not a little business. It's a highly regulated business. It's not like opening a fish and chip shop where you can just buy a shop and then get some food and stick it in a fryer. It's very, very, very different. We have a regulatory body that is very strict because you've got to think about it, all right? You're delivering training and assessment for students who are going to go into the workplace, and they're going to be responsible once you've taught them to have the skills and knowledge that you delivered. Now, if you didn't deliver that properly, some of the highest risk is a critical incident. Someone could die. It could be a WHS hazard. It could be they weren't taught properly. We've heard of instances where students have gone into a childcare centre and they didn't know how to put a nappy on. They got a diploma in childcare, but don't know how to put a nappy on. Like, they're disposable. It's not that hard. But they weren't taught. So they never actually did any hands-on practical experience. You need to do hands-on practical experience before you go into the workplace. So how are you making sure of that? So this is why it's worth, it's a big commitment doing this, but there are so many benefits out of it. I love working in the training industry. There's so much in it that you can, get so much benefits out of it. Money is one, but also a lot of satisfaction working in the training industry. So where do others fail? We often get people who've tried to do this on their own. They bought an RTO or they tried to set up on their own and they fail. And then they come to us and go, help. Try and help us. And that's really hard for us because it's actually a lot more work to help you when we don't know what you did at your audit. So we need to fix that. So often what happens is people have a limited understanding of what to expect at audit. They don't know what the process is. They've never experienced one before, and they don't know what's going to happen. Now, audits can be totally different. It really depends on your auditor, what can happen at audit. And it depends on your training products and what you've got in place, your trainers and assessors. There's so many variables that are involved. Training and assessment strategies, as I said earlier, are the number one non-compliance when you go to audit. So it is a big issue with the training and assessment strategies and delivery and assessment plans. So it's not clear how are you going to deliver this training and assessment to meet the requirements of the training product. So that's another high non-compliance. And then trainers and assessors have insufficient skills and knowledge to meet the requirements of the training product that they're delivering. So a huge non-compliance. It's a huge area where a lot of people are non-compliance. The other one is assessment tools. You're not collecting sufficient evidence to demonstrate that the student is competent in the units of competencies that you've delivered. So it's a huge non-compliance when you go to audit. So you want to make sure that you've got the right tools and that you're collecting sufficient evidence and that you know what that is. It's a huge area that we deliver training in because we know that this is the highest non-compliance when you go to audit, these areas here. Do not have the capacity to deliver what they said they were going to do in the financial viability risk assessment. So that's another area. They don't have the policies and procedures in place to support what they're going to do to look after the students and meet the requirements of the legislation, all those documents that support it, or the training facilities do not meet the requirements for the training products that you're going to be deliver. And the other one is, we've had it so many times where people have hired a consultant because they were cheap. So they went with the cheap option for their consultant who left them. I've heard of instances where they contacted us, the consultant they hired dropped off all the documents the night before the audit and then didn't attend the audit and didn't tell them what was in the documents. So didn't train them, didn't show them what they needed to do at audit. So there are dodgy training operators out there. There are also dodgy consultants. So you need to be really careful with who you hire. I've heard of people who've just gone, I'm a trainer assessor. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to be a consultant to the training industry. And they don't have any audit experience, or they might have attended one or two. I've attended over 300, 400 ASQA audits. Lots of ASQA audits. I live and breathe this stuff. I've been doing it since 2009. This is Vivacity. And then prior to that, I owned and operated my own RTO. And prior to that, I was a trainer assessor. Prior to that, I did training, lots of experience in lots of different areas. You can't just fall off the back of the truck and start being a consultant. So you really need to think about, who are you hiring, and do they have the skills and knowledge to be able to support you? Like, I've had clients say to me that we hold their hand through the whole audit process. We make it easier for them. Where they're superheroes. I've got my superhero behind me here. We like to think that that's what we do. We're there by your side. So the risks of setting up without expertise is you lose money, a lot of money. And we've seen people blow a lot of money on buying or trying to set up the RTO by themselves. You have missing crucial documents when you go to audit, not being properly prepared for the audit, wasting a whole heap of time. You have to start all over again. It can be very, very stressful financially, emotionally, and the whole family. It can really affect everyone. Getting overwhelmed when it comes to, I've seen clients, and they're with us, and they are like rabbits in the spotlight when it comes to an audit, and they just don't know what to say or how to do it, and then we're coaching them through, so it makes it easier. But imagine if you're doing that without us there. I had one client, we had the audit, we walked out the door, and I've got like bundles of stuff in my hands as we're walking out the door, and he says to me, "Angela, anybody who thinks they're going to set up an RTO without you, they're bloody dreaming." I was just like, quick, I want to record this. This is amazing. And I was just like, wow. He just said, there's no way I could have done this on my own. All this stuff that we would have had to have done. And we got him through 100% compliant at the audit. So it's a lot of work. You really got to think about who you've got on your side. So what if you are non-compliant? So ASQA provides an ASQA audit report following the audit, and you need to provide rectifications as part of that process. It's not rectification now, it's reconsideration. So what they'll do is you can provide further evidence and they will reconsider your application, but you may or may not get through with that depending on what evidence you provide. If you get a minor risk, they won't audit you again until you are up for your 1 year. So your 1 year post initial audit. So you're only registered for the first year, and then they come back and do another audit just to check on you and make sure that you're running everything the way you should be, the way you said you were going to in your first audit. So if it's a critical risk, your application will be rejected and you have the opportunity to apply again, but you have to wait. I think there's like a 3-month waiting period. So that's all about how to launch an RTO. Now, hopefully I didn't scare you off by it now, but if you are scared off, it might be that this is not the right thing for you, because you really need to consider, do you have the skills and knowledge? Do you really want to go through all this process? Because there's a lot involved. And if you really do, keep going, because I can solve your problem. So want to solve that problem, that ASQA audit risks, and kickstart your own RTO? Well, there are 2 paths that you could take from this point forward. There is path 1, where you try to navigate registering your RTO on your own, work out how to prepare your initial registration application, identify the best training products that you should put on your scope, and what's the highest risk and what's the minimum risk, and what are all the training materials that we need to have, and who do I hire, and all of that sort of stuff. Identify what you think will be compliant or non-compliant within your application and complete that self-assessment on your own, and then go to audit alone, without support, without an expert here, right here, by your side, helping you out through the whole process. So you could go for that risk. waste your time and money to discover that you are non-compliant and do not meet the requirements. And then you might have to go through the whole reconsideration process and spend more money on fixing those non-compliances. And it might be, hey, we'll go to Vivacity now and they will help us out and fix it. A lot more work, way more work than if you were just to hire us first go. So, you know, we could help you out and we coach you through the whole way. We don't just give you the materials and go, off you go fly, be free. We coach you through the whole process of how to do this, and then end up overwhelmed, stressed, maybe even divorced. You never know, because it's quite stressful, everything you go through. But what's the real cost of doing this alone? Weeks and months and maybe years of energy that you've put into this project. Like that client, 2.5 years. He tried to buy an RTO, 2.5 years. We've got another person who's been trying for 7 years. She keeps putting it off. Losing money. Lose focus on your real goal. What do you really want to achieve out of all of this? And you really need to think about what's your why. I know my why. My why is we change lives through education, and we do this through you guys. So we have an impact on Australia's economy and the training that we're providing and industry and how we're meeting their requirements. That's my why. Getting rejected by ASQA, ending up in tribunal. So tribunal is the next stage where you then go to take ASQA to tribunal and then try to get your registration, which costs more money and time. Spending more money on another consultant to fix the non-compliances. Or path two. Path two is let me and my team coach you through the whole process. We have a systematic approach for setting up RTOs. Yeah, 11 years of experience, over 20 actually, but Vivacity since 2009. So with over 30 years of experience in the training industry, you have a team, not one person, not one little lone consultant who just fell off the back of the truck. You have a whole team that work with you who are RTO and CRICOS compliance experts to answer your questions. We're here. We're here to answer your questions and be there and support you through the whole process with proven strategies and processes that we've gone through over 400 ASQA audits where we've helped people through this whole process. So that includes their initial registration, and then we've got clients who have been with us since Vivacity started in 2009. So it's been a very long time. I've just got my little puppy walking behind me, working from home. This was like, okay, smart people engage the experts to take the headache out of setting up an RTO, where you've got a team of experts on the side. So introducing the Kickstart package, getting it right the first time when you go to audit, instead of going through all of that stress. So what do we do different from the other consultants that are out there? Because there's a few out there. There's a few that you could choose from, and I'm sure we're not the first ones that you've come across. What do we do that they don't do? We have a weekly coaching session. So this coaching session is led by me, and the whole team is there. There's 8 of us on the team, and we are there as well. We've got other auditors who are there, and we've got our admin team. We're all there, and we're coaching you through the whole process. And what we do, so it's a group coaching, and we have existing RTOs as well as, so they're our members, and as well as initial. So you get to learn from our existing RTOs as well as us. So you get more people to learn from and bounce ideas off. We have a private Facebook group just for our members, so you can all interact in there, and I put tips and tricks and latest news in there as well. We also go through the latest requirements of the vet reform, and we go through what are the requirements of audit, and we also keep you accountable. So we get you to set 3 high value activities per week, and we have a monthly cycle that we go through, and we get to set goals, and we do a yearly strategic planning meeting. So you will learn so much through that coaching that you get as well as us helping you set up the RTO. So you're going to have a team on your side coaching you through. We teach you how to run a successful RTO from monthly live webinars, and we have a series of online training. As I said before, we've got an 8-week training and assessment strategy course. So it's the TAS Superhero, and it teaches you everything you need to know about writing a training and assessment strategy, and that's delivered by me. And I also have a range of other online courses, industry consultation. We've also got another one about government funding, how to deliver your training online. We've got a whole heap of different training in there that you can access, and then you get that coaching with us. We have over 30 years of experience in the training industry. We didn't just fall off the truck and decide we're going to be a consultant. We have extensive experience in policies and procedures. So I have been writing policies and procedures for way too long. I don't want to go there because it was a long time ago, but I used to write work health and safety, policies and procedures, industrial relations, policies and procedures for staff handbooks. There's a whole heap of stuff that I used to do. So moving into this was pretty easy because it's just converting the legislation. For me, it is. I just convert the legislation into what is usable policies and procedures that you can implement into your organisation. And not only that, we have a monthly webinar, live webinar, where I teach you how to implement those policies and procedures into your organisation. Isn't that cool? That's so easy. We're there. We're there for you everywhere. We have a systematic approach for setting up your RTO, and it's tried and tested. We've been doing it for a very long time. So our Kickstart method includes a business planning stage where we help you write your strategic business plan and identify what you're going to do over the next 3 years and plan that with you. And then we incorporate that into your training and assessment strategy. Remember that 8-week course. So we've got an 8-week course on that as well. But we set up the templates for you, and we put all of the core information, and then we coach you through what training products you should put on your scope and what assessment tools that you need, and the training materials and equipment, and how you meet the legislative requirements. We do all of that with you. We help you. It's so easy. Then we do the self-assessment with you. So we conduct that self-assessment. Then we get the financial viability. Now we do it that way because we want to make sure we've got everything in place first before we submit, because your financial viability is only valid for 30 days. So we want to submit those together. Then we help you with the validation audit with ASQA, and we go to the audit with you, and we hold your hand the whole way and coach you through, and you get 12 months membership with Vivacity. So you're with us for 12 months, no matter what, whether you get it done in 3 months or it takes you 12 months. You'll have us by your side, teaching you, coaching you, and getting you through the whole process. So happy. Our clients are very happy. They work with us really well. So we don't have any hidden fees. It's not now you're going to pay for this and now you're going to pay for that. I know of one consulting company, they charge $500 for them to brand the documents to your organization. We don't do that. All of your documents will be branded. We have a system that we've had built that brands all of the documents. We just get all your data and we put it into the system, and then it brands it for you. Put your logo in there and your name, address, and phone number, and all of that sort of stuff is all in there. No one else does that. Everyone else does it manually. We have an automated system that does that. I love systems. You might guess that. I really do. So we have this system. It's called Unicorn. And in Unicorn, we have every task and every email, and we have all of the packages and the different levels, and it's all very systemized. So my team just go through that with you and guide you through the whole process. And there's no additional fees. So we're going to be clear and upfront what all the fees are. We're not going to add and add and add and add. It'll be clear and upfront. I've already told you how much it costs to set up an RTO. So I'm being very open and honest, which is one of our values, by the way. So when we're working with our clients, we provide you with training, expertise, and support. We deliver, we've got live training, we've got online training, then we've got coaching, we've got weekly coaching that we do with you, and you get a dedicated client liaison officer who looks after you through the whole process. They're your project manager. They make sure you get work done, and they call you and have a chat. And if you don't want to call, we can message as well. So there's lots of different ways you can contact us. We have those monthly webinars so you can learn how to implement. We prepare you for your ASQA audit, focusing on managing your risks. We want to minimize your risk. We don't want to go to audit with risk. Don't want to do that. We want to minimize that, make it easier. And we have an online system that brands all of your documents. So who are our team? We have over 30 years of experience in the training industry, attended over 400 ASQA audits. We are experienced auditors in both RTO and CRICOS compliance. I've been writing policies and procedures for over 20 years. We also have experienced trainers and assessors, so they understand what it's like to be a trainer assessor. We have hands-on experience of working in RTOs and CRICOS organisations. And our team are all trained by me, and we have another auditor, Amanda, who does the auditing as well. So you got a team. So awesome. Our Kickstart package requires no industry experience at all. We teach you, we train you on the whole lot. So what will you get? A systematic approach to gaining registration, a user guide on how to run your RTO or CRICOS organization, which is that policy and procedure manual that I teach you how to implement as well. And I go through the documents and how to use those and things like that. You get an industry recognized leader, author, podcaster. I do a lot of things in the industry as well. So you get us by your side, expertise in the industry to get you through quicker. We can get you started straight away, so you don't need to wait. There's no excuses to wait because we have everything ready. If you've got the idea and you know what training products you want to do, we can get you started. We set realistic goals. We will be honest about the whole process. And as you can hear, I'm being very honest about the process. We're not going to be unrealistic. We're not going to tell you lies just to get you over the line as a client. Like if you've spoken to Dave, you've mostly heard from Dave that he's going to try and convince you not to set up an RTO. And the reason why is because, as you can hear, there's a lot involved with setting up an RTO. So it's a big process. So we're going to be open and honest with you and make sure that you really want to do this. So get started with our dream team, where you get experienced experts by your side. You will be fully supported with training, with systems and practices in place. We have hands-on experience of being in an ASQA audit, so we know what it's like, and we've done it time and time again, and we've done so many different types. We've done initials, re-registration, complaint audits, tribunal matters, monitoring audits. There's all sorts of different audits we've been to, and you get a whole team, not one consultant who fell off the back of the truck. You get a whole team that help you through the whole process. So building your dream to set up an RTO and hopefully change lives through education, because that's what we want. We want you to do that. We are not building you a business for right now. We're building you a business for the future. And it's an investment in not only yourself, but it's an investment to all the people that you're going to be delivering training to. We have experience, expertise, and the tools to help you achieve your goals. We have loads of connections, a lot of connections. Like I've been in the training industry for 30 years. I've got a lot of connections in the training industry. So we can refer you, we can identify the best training products. We can find different resources for you as well. We know a lot, like we know all the database companies, we know which ones suit different RTOs. We know all of this. So you may even be close to, but you just need the right team on your side to be right there next to you, right next to you at the audit and through the whole process. So what will you get in the Kickstart package? So in the Kickstart package, we like to think of it as a flight plan. So we're going to build and develop those plans. So that is your business plan, your training and assessment strategies, and then identifying the skills and knowledge that your trainers and assessors are going to need and what the existing skills and knowledge of your students are going to be, so we can clear the runway and then get ready to take off as an RTO and then be compliant and flying as an RTO. through that coaching that we're going to do with you as well. So, coach you through the whole process. And then through our membership, we're there with you to stay up in the air and keep going and build a business that's very successful. So the Kickstart solutions we have, so we make compliance easy. When our clients complete our training, they have a much better understanding of, you're like, you've learnt a lot today. You think this is a lot. This is, that iceberg that I was talking about. That's the little tip, right at the top. It's way above the water. So you'll learn so much more with the training that we have, and we work with you by your side. So there's so many benefits. It'll get through the process so much quicker. You'll save time because you'll have us by your side. You'll have a much better understanding, and when you go to audit, you'll understand what you're doing and why you're there and what the whole process is. And we'll help reduce your stress as well. So the prize is the Vivacity Kickstart package helps you navigate through the complexities of compliance. We save you time, compliance, and money. The three biggest problems when you work in an RTO. You get a dedicated client liaison officer who will be in contact with you on a regular basis and coach you through the whole process and keep you accountable to the tasks that you need to complete in order to get your registration. We don't do everything for you. And the reason why is when you go to audit, ASQA are auditing you, not us. So they need to know that you know what you're supposed to be doing. So we coach you through that process and teach you the entire process. So we take you through the business planning stage, financial viability, building your training and assessment strategies, doing your ASQA net submission to ASQA, conducting the self-assessment and a mock audit, and then we're there by your side at the audit. So what does our Kickstart package look like? So we have a gold, ruby, and diamond. So gold is very much you have experience in the training industry already. You might already have worked in compliance before and you just need the support. And it's that very basic level. Ruby is our most popular. So Ruby, you get a couple of consult days. We do assessment validation with you. And you also get sessions with our accountant and team. And Diamond, you get 12 consult days all up. And you also get some sessions with assessment validation and annual systems check. There's lots of benefits with that. So Diamond is normally, you don't have a lot of support, you don't know much about the training industry, and you need a lot more support with your initial registration. So here are some of the inclusions that are on our consult membership. So we have quite a bit included within that package. We include, helping you out with your strategic plan, your projected profit and loss. We have a spreadsheet that we give you, and we introduce you to a specialised accountant who specialises in RTO financial viability risk assessment as well. So we'll introduce you to them, and we prepare all of your documentation for submission to ASQA, and we provide you with training and support the whole way. This was the training and assessment strategy. So the training and assessment strategy is quite involved, as you can see there, but this is one of the courses that we do. So we teach you how to write an effective TAS and understand what the requirements are when it comes to TAS. Lots of PD, get lots of professional development, online, live. There's a range of different PD that you get, and you also get a certificate when you complete that training, which is recognised by ASQA. So ASQA recognise all of our certificates. We're not nationally recognised, but we are recognised as professional development. So you'll get those certificates. We do the self-assessment with you. We sign off on it with you as well, because you can have a consultant sign off on the self-assessment. That reassures ASQA, because we're quite known by ASQA, reassures them that you've had a team by your side to help you out through this process. And we put together the whole submission to ASQAnet. So ASQAnet is the ASQA portal for submitting your application. And these are all the documents that you need to submit. And then we're by your side for your ASQA audit. Yay! We make it so much easier for you. You don't have to do it by yourself. Yeah. don't want to do that. So these are some of our clients, and I just wanted to give you some examples. This was a kickstart that we did with a organization where they were a restaurant owner. So he owned a restaurant and commercial cookery and decided to set up as an RTO CRICOS. We made some adjustments with his CRICOS registration. We also provide referrals for his 9B registration, and then he did a fit out of the restaurant as well to meet the requirements for delivery of training, and we got him approved within a month of the audit. Another one is PM Partners. They were delivering non-accredited project management training, and they were going to lose a $2 million contract if they didn't become an RTO. And we completed their registration within 3 months. So that's submitted and approved. So we got them approved within 3 months. They had a deadline they had to meet. As I said, they threw all of their resources in to get that done. They had to get it done before the end of financial year. So they put a lot into it. The return on investment, an RTO is valued at, if you've been looking at buying one, you know it's about 150,000. If it's below that, that is a lot of work for you. There's a lot of work. You saw all that stuff you got to do, the self-assessment and audit. You have to do that because the previous owner's not going to do that. We know someone who's just gone through that right now. So yeah, if you're paying less than 150,000, there's something wrong. Don't do it. You will have access to government funding as an RTO. When I sold my RTO back in 2009, I sold it for over $500,000. So I've seen ones for a couple of $1 million. So depends on what you got. And then you may be interested in accessing the international market. Maybe not now, but maybe later on. And there's so many opportunities to expand your business. Would you rather have a team of experts on your side with over 30 years of experience and over 300 successful ASQA audits, actually 400, sitting next to you? Yeah, like where my puppy is, right there. Sitting next to you at your ASQA audit. If you did this on your own, you'd be paying salary for an RTO manager, which is around 120 to 200,000 a year. It could take you up to 3 years to get your registration. You have the risk of being non-compliant when you go to audit and lose a lot of time and money and cause stress that you don't want. So why choose Vivacity? We're an experienced team of experts, proven systems and practices. Vivacity teaches you how to be compliant. You don't rely on us like to be your compliance person all the time. Like we teach you how to do it. So you can fly and be free. You will be audit ready and get to your ASQA audit feeling confident. So why Vivacity? We will be by your side at your ASQA audit. We include professional development through lots of different mediums. You'll learn so much. Our documents have been through many, many ASQA audits before, and we also have a team of experienced people on our team in both RTO and CRICOS, and we have connections that we can hook you up with. So, but what if, you might be saying, you might be going, what if? It sounds too hard. I have no previous RTO experience. I need to wait and know more. I need to learn a bit more. I don't know why, because I've taught you heaps. I am not ready right now. You may not be ready, but you might be watching this and go, oh, I don't think I want to do this now. Okay, well, that may be right. I wouldn't encourage you to do it if you feel like that. I think I can do this on my own. Well, good luck. I am feeling overwhelmed. Well, that's why you hire a team of experts, because we take you through the whole process and hold your hand the whole way, and you're right next to us. If all this Kickstart did for you was increase your chance of successful registration, saved you loads of time and money, enabled you to be held accountable for growing your business through our weekly coaching, and gave you all the tools you needed to get your RTO launched, wouldn't it be worth it? I encourage you now, book a discovery call with Dave. So you can just scan this QR code, or you can go to our website and book a discovery call right now and have a chat with Dave. And Dave can take you through the process of what we do and what you need to get ready to sign up, and we can do it for you. We've got a couple of clients who've given us some testimonials that I just thought I'd go through here. We've had over 300 training organizations that we've worked with. So if you want to know more about the Kickstart package, give Dave a call and book a discovery call. And you can have a chat with him, and he can go and he can actually identify whether you're a gold, ruby, or a diamond and what you need. If you check out Google, we have quite a few reviews on there, and these are our clients who've attended training or they're doing Kickstart with us. We've got a range of different things that we do. So I highly recommend you book that discovery call right now. So have you done it yet? Are you on your phone? Did you scan the QR code? So scan that code, book it now. You need to book this discovery call right now to find out more about how we can help you. All right, now that checklist. So you must have been waiting to the end now to get this checklist. So if you can scan here, you can get access to our audit checklist. So this is a checklist of what you need to have in place before you go to an ASQA audit. So scan this now and you'll be able to access this audit checklist, and it will give you a much better understanding of what you need to have in place. Like I've told you quite a few things today, but there are a lot more things that you need to have in place and what you need to demonstrate when you go to an ASQA audit. And if you have any further questions, get in contact with Dave. So book a discovery call, and I look forward to catching up with you soon and hopefully at one of our coaching sessions. Thank you very much for listening today, and I hope you got a lot out of this and were able to get a few gems, identify this is what you want to do, and good luck into the future with your training journey.